Hello everybody, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Nimue, and I make videos about The Witcher books, games, and sometimes critiquing the Netflix series too. And today we're going to be talking about the new expansion pack for The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Songs of the Past. You'll have to forgive me because this video may seem a little bit impromptu. As you can imagine, I didn't have much time to prepare it, but I did create a slide deck for us. So no matter if you were following this story already or not, I will go through a little bit about the new expansion and also some theories. Let me just set my focus to the slides so you can see the slides. Oh my god, it's so dark. Oh shit, okay, give me a second. Okay, well, this lighting isn't much better, but I would rather have you see the slides than see my face. So the announcement dropped like yesterday. I don't actually remember exactly when because it was kind of like 2 a.m. in my time zone when it happened. So it could have been the 26th, it could have been the 27th. All I remember is that I went to sleep at like 6 a.m. then, so the days have been kind of blurry for me this week. But we're just gonna move on from that. Just so you know, the announcement was recent, okay? This is recent breaking news, okay? But it actually goes all the way back to 2025. So in June of 2025, on the Boris Irok podcast, we heard some insider information that there may be a DLC for The Witcher 3 coming up. Now, this was surprising news because obviously The Witcher 3 is like 10 years old at this point. No one was really expecting any more expansion packs or DLCs.
Z zebranych przez nas informacji wynika, że ogłoszonym tajemniczym projektem CD Projekt Red, robionym przez Fool's Theory, jest fabularne DLC do Wiedźmina III.
Then, in December, this was actually corroborated with a Q3 earnings call from CD Projekt, in which they had predicted that they would have an increase in revenue in the coming years, as you can see for the 2025-2028 period. So people were thinking, obviously that's going to be Witcher 4, that's why they would have more revenue. But the chief financial officer of CD Projekt, he had said that there's going to be new content this year. So then everyone was freaking out and was like, okay, what do you mean new content? Because Witcher 4 is huge. It's going to be like 2028 optimistically, but more like 2029, right? So that's when more people in the community decided that, oh yeah, okay, the claim made by Boris on the podcast was probably correct. So that was in November, and then in December, we got this report from Noble Securities, which is a Polish brokerage firm, and an analyst there said that there was probably going to be another DLC for The Witcher in 2026. Specifically, he had said it would appear in May of 2026, which would make sense because that's when The Witcher 2 released, it's when The Witcher 3 released, it's also when the Blood and Wine expansion pack released. It was all in May. It's a very, very important time for CD Projekt's Witcher, okay? And also happy 10 years to Blood and Wine. You've given me brain worms for this long, so thank you for that. That leads us to 2026, when honestly at the beginning of the year we're just kind of waiting around for news to happen, right? But then IGN Polling came out with this report that they had known that there was going to be Witcher DLC or expansion pack or, you know, extras for The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt like since 2015, since really, really way back when. But they never reported on it because it was only really due to one source that they had this information and they didn't know for sure. There like wasn't enough to report on. But in this report by IGN, they said that the location for the upcoming DLC would probably be in Zerrikania. And that would make sense because as we've seen with The Witcher 4 and everything about it, Ciri has Witcher mutations and everybody is like wondering, how did she undergo the Trial of the Grasses? How is she a Witcher now? Well, one way that she could be a Witcher is if she had received mutations at a different Witcher school rather than the School of the Wolf in Kaer Morhen. Now, this is where CD Projekt's lore starts to diverge from Sapkowski's because, as we learn in Crossroads of Ravens, the latest Witcher book by Sapkowski last year, there are no Witcher schools. There's only the 3 Witcher fortresses, and when he said schools, he meant something different than the physical location of a school, more like the philosophy or training of a Witcher, right? But of course, CD Projekt has like a bunch of different extra Witcher schools that they added to the lore, like School of the Bear, School of the Crane, School of the Manticore. And the Manticore one is what people thought that this Zerrikania idea could possibly be related to. Because, as we saw in the trailer, Ciri has mutations now, and so everyone was kind of wondering where she got those from. Because, as far as Geralt knows, there have been no female Witchers. All of this would have been pretty much unthinkable by the Northern Kingdom standards. But it might have been plausible by the Zerrikanian standards because women in Zerrikania have elevated positions in society. In the book, Zerrikania is known for its warrior women, but also CD Projekt has created their own lore, and in Thronebreaker, it's established that Zerrikania has a queen. And like, we have badass queens too. Thronebreaker, we literally have Maeve, and we also had Kalante, Rip Queen. But I would say that Maeve and Kalante are more like exceptions to the rule, and they gain power despite the fact that as queens they typically wouldn't have as much power as the rulers. CD Projekt sees Zerrikania as more like a matriarchy, which would be really cool because they're partially inspired by the myths of the Amazons. And the myths of the Amazons were created by the ancient Greeks, being inspired by the peoples of the Eurasian steppe, the Scythians, the nomadic peoples that lived there. I created this whole video actually about Zerrikania and its connection to Scythian culture, but of course this theory about the DLC became outdated, so I kind of decided to scrap the idea, even though I still have the script. So I don't know, let me know if you guys want that video on Zerrikania, because I also feel like the lore that CD Projekt has created, it conflicts a lot with the actual lore from the books. So it's actually unlikely for the expansion pack to take place in Zerrikania now. But anyways, as 2026 trekked on, we got more confirmation in the form of a financial report that was released in March, where it was mentioned that they still had unannounced gaming projects. So that leads me to my question, did we know? Yes, we knew. If you were following the story, if you had heard about what was going on, the answer is yes. We knew this. It was confirmed by multiple sources by this point. We knew that something was on the horizon. It was really a question of when it would be announced. And the question was answered just a couple of days ago. 2 a.m. May 27th, 2026. Although they had originally planned to make this announcement on the live stream today, which was the 10th year anniversary of Blood and Wine, something came up. And that something was accidentally leaking it on the Red launcher. Now, as far as I can tell, this was not a malicious leak. As you can see, it was just a glitch or like an accident here. And the screenshots here were posted by just a regular fan. But of course, things get pushed around on Twitter out of context, and so I think that CD Projekt wanted to probably take control of the situation, so they just posted about it instead of waiting for the live stream. So this is the official description of the expansion pack on the website right now. We don't know too much about it, except that it's an expansion and we're playing as Geralt, which is somewhat good news because honestly, the Ciri parts of The Witcher 3 are not that great combat-wise, anyways. But I think people were still wondering if we would be able to play as Ciri in this expansion pack. I mean, Witcher 4 is coming out, so obviously CD Projekt would probably want to link Witcher 3 and Witcher 4. And I'm not saying that there's not going to be any parts where we play as Ciri, but for now, we know that we are mainly playing as Geralt. But the more important thing is that it's not just DLC. It's not just Count de la Croix from Blood and Wine, okay? It's not just downloadable content. That's what DLC stands for. At least it isn't to CD Projekt, because in CD Projekt's definition, a DLC is more like these small little pieces of content, and expansion packs are large items. So, for example, these are DLCs, the little alternative outfits for Ciri, Yen, and Triss. But the expansions that we have so far are Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine, which it's like a whole new game inside the game. And Songs of the Past is probably not going to differ too much from that because, as we can see, these are the next-gen requirements for The Witcher 3. Next-gen released in like 2022, so ever since then, the game has taken up about 50 gigabytes of space on your SSD. But for Songs of the Past, the requirements updated, so now you actually need 70 gigabytes of SSD. Now, I'm not that good at math, okay? But I know the difference between 50 gigabytes and 70 gigabytes. That's 20 whole fucking gigabytes of content. And to draw some comparisons, Hearts of Stone requires 10 gigabytes, and Blood and Wine requires 35. So Songs of the Past probably going to be like right in between those.
Songs of the Past will be aligned with what you're familiar with Blood and Wine, and what you've come to experience and expect from us when we do our expansions.
But that's really all that we know that's concrete for now. We do have more information coming late summer, which will probably be at Gamescom, which takes place in late August. I think that it's probably going to be at Gamescom because in 2014 they did the half-hour Witcher 3 demo, and also last year they kicked off The Witcher in concert. By the way, I also still have to edit my concert footage and wrap it into a nice video. I kind of procrastinate on it because I think that I'm very cringy in my footage, but it was a really fun experience, and I'm so glad I went. I just get really excited when I talk about Witcher stuff, and then it's really, really cringy to edit. But anyways, in the meantime, I want to talk about certainties. So these aren't things that we know for like 100% certain, but like to me, they're like 90% certain, okay? There's 3 that I want to go through. The first one is that I think that this expansion pack will very likely take us to a new region. Now, why do I think that? Well, Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine both do that. Although Hearts of Stone doesn't take us to a new area that you have to like, travel to and load, like you still are on the Velen, Novigrad, Oxenfurt map, it does add a whole new area that's, apparently it's called Gust Fields. I didn't know that before I started making this video and had to look it up on the wiki. But it adds a new area to the map with a lot more things to do there. Blood and Wine also obviously adds Toussaint, but it also adds the Land of a Thousand Fables, which is like a smaller little pocket dimension, which is the illusion that you enter with Sienna, if you decide to go that route and not go see the Elder. So my thinking here is that it will be like its predecessors, an expansion pack that adds another region. I mean, it's freaking 20 gigabytes large. Like, what else are they gonna do with all of that space? My second certainty is that this expansion pack will definitely somehow connect The Witcher 3 and Witcher 4. Now, how they do that is up in the air. For example, I don't think that we're like gonna go to Kovir already and we're gonna go see the area. I think that we're going to have a separate little experience, but that this will somehow have to do with Geralt and Ciri's relationship, or Geralt-Yennefer and Ciri's relationship, I should say. The third one is obviously the title, Songs of the Past. It's vague enough, but it's also specific enough to give us some pointers here. So to summarize all this, it's 20 gigabytes worth of content. Ciri probably shows up or is related to it somehow, and what's going to be about past storytelling songs. Now let's get into some probabilities and possibilities. I've separated these two because probabilities are stuff that probably will happen, and possibilities are stuff that might happen. It will make more sense as we get into it. But let's go into our first probability, which is Belleteyn. Now, Deciphering posted this artwork on their channels on May 1st, obviously the date of Belleteyn, and there were some things that fans had already pointed out here when the Songs of the Past announcement came out. We'll get into them right away, but I just wanted to note that it was confirmed on the live stream today that this artwork does indeed have something to do with the expansion pack.
As a few eagle-eyed people have already seen over the last 24 hours, there are some hints for you waiting on a very important evening in Witcher lore, Belleteyn Night, and our Belleteyn celebration that we shared a few weeks ago. So keep looking for clues.
Maybe they missed something. Who knows?
So what a lot of people have noticed from the Songs of the Past artwork and also the Belleteyn artwork is the sword that Geralt is holding, this one. Because according to the crossguard, looks like the same sword. Now the question is, why would Geralt be carrying a third sword? He's already got his 2. Why do you need a third? Well, this could tie back to Ciri. Now my speculation is that this is a sword for Ciri. Kind of like the end of the Witcher 3 base game if you save Ciri and she survives and becomes a Witcheress. Which is also known as the correct ending, because there's no way in hell that I'm taking her to that sociopath Emir. But what does Ciri have to do with Belleteyn? Well, a lot of things. The Belleteyn in The Witcher gets a lot of its roots from Belleteyn, the Gaelic celebration on May 1st, and also Kupawa Night, which is the Slavic celebration of the summer solstice. Both of these celebrations have a lot to do with growth, life, and fertility, which is especially important to Geralt and Yennefer. Also, something else I noticed relating to Belleteyn is this artwork of Geralt leading Roach through a field where people are releasing lanterns, which after Googling it, I learned that this is a reference to a more modern celebration of Kupawa Night, where people release Chinese lanterns, so that's nice. But Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri have a very symbolic connection to the festival of Belleteyn, aside from the fact that Yennefer and Ciri were both born around this time. This is really prominently spoken about in the short story Something More, where Yennefer laments again over her infertility as a sorceress. Now, some interpretations of The Witcher, which shall not be named in this video, ignore the fact that Geralt was also lamenting over his infertility as well. Of course, he was more subtle about it than Yennefer, but the point still stands that he chose Ciri as his surprise child at the end of A Question of Price. He did not ask for a surprise child sarcastically.
Fuck.
In Something More, Yennefer tells Geralt, "After our winter will not come the spring, and we shall not be reborn. What finishes will finish along with us." In this quote, she's mourning the fact that, although her and Geralt are meant to be together, nothing will come of it, as they were told by Borthry Jackdaws in Limits of the Possible. They have no one to pass their legacy on to. When they die, no one will remember them. But Ciri is that spring. Ciri is that rebirth. And Ciri is that something more? Because destiny is not enough. Something more is needed. And that something more is love. Ciri is the legacy of Geralt and Yennefer as a witcheress and a sorceress. Although she gave up her magic in Karath Desert in Time of Contempt, Chapter 6, I'm waiting for a good explanation from Deciphering on that front. But it's very evident that Ciri is Geralt and Yennefer's symbolic rebirth, as is also evident in the end of Lady of the Lake, but I won't get into that right now in case you haven't read the books and don't want spoilers. So my prediction for this expansion pack is that there's going to be a Belleteyn scene, possibly with Yennefer, possibly with Ciri, but it's really going to be about Ciri being Geralt and Yennefer's legacy, which would lead perfectly into the events of Witcher 4. Now let's get into some possibilities. These are things that are not really confirmed by anything that we've seen from Deciphering, but they're things that I thought of and I want to share with you. So let's just get started on it. Number 1, the mysterious tree creature. So as we can see in the promotional artwork for Songs of the Past, we have this tree thing in the background. Now, people have also said that this thing popped up in the Belleteyn artwork as this sort of looks like a claw from the tree. I'm not really sure about that. It kind of just looks like a branch to me, but I guess it is also kind of like hand shape, so I don't know. But what I really wanted to talk about was the identity of this creature, because it doesn't really look like anything we've seen before. I saw people saying that this is a Leshen because it has tree features and kind of like antlers, but it doesn't really resemble it in any other way, so I don't think so. The other creature that people were comparing this to is a him, which shows up in the Possession questline in Skellige. But aside from the antlers, I also don't see much resemblance here because the him doesn't have any tree features at all. So I also don't think so. Instead of just being a Leshen or a him, I think that this creature is going to be something entirely different and new. If not a new unique creature, a new unique character who will be integral to the expansion pack. And another reason why I think this is because this creature is positioned behind Geralt, just like Detloff is in the Blood and Wine promotional art. And Detloff is one of the antagonists, if not the main antagonist in Blood and Wine. Even though I would say that Syanna is actually more evil, but okay. So I think it's worth seeing this as our main antagonist. And something else about this creature that I'd like to point out, because I haven't seen anyone else say this yet, is that I think that it's female. I'm not trying to assume it's gender or anything, okay? But look at this. It has these antlers or a crown, but then it has this long hair and also sort of a curve to its chest and also a hag-like face. Of course, it could also be just an androgynous figure. I mean, it's a fucking tree, okay? But when I saw this, I thought it was a female tree monster. Does that make sense? Which led me to initially believe that this creature was probably the ghost in the tree, aka the Whispering Hillock, which is the mother of the crones from Velen. Or, I'm sorry, Ladies of the Wood. Crones is offensive term for them. And my initial theory for this expansion pack was that it was going to involve her somehow, but then I realized that in Witcher 3, she can actually die if you choose to kill her, right? So her outcome depends on player choice. And I think that what Deciphering will probably end up doing is using this character and the Ladies of the Wood as more recurring characters in The Witcher 4, rather than having them reappear again in the expansion pack for Witcher 3, because why would they show up again if you already just dealt with them in the base game? So I don't think so. But I do still have some theories about who or what this creature might be, so we'll come back to this later. The second possibility that I'd like to talk about is Dandelion, because it's possible that he might have a role to play in this expansion pack. Now this relates to the possible theory that it's Sidoris that we're going to here. This relates to what Uwe, who is a prominent YouTuber and streamer who has some connections, was saying on his streams, that he thinks from what his friends were saying that the region that we're going to see is Sidoris.
Ja obstawiam jakieś Królestwo Północy jednak, no bo co, Kowir, Powis już. Ja obstawiam Cidaris. I tyle powiem. Do zobaczenia. Pa, pa!
Now, I just want to play a little bit of his stream because actually he had one of the most logical takes that I've heard. It actually doesn't have anything to do with Sidaris, but it's one of the best takes that I've heard during this whole discussion about possible Witcher 3 DLC, because I think that when there's something as exciting as this, we can really get into sensationalism, and then people get fanatical and start posting things without sources and also exaggerating their claims.
To jest w ogóle dość zabawne, bo na zachodzie się zrobił z tego temat. Teraz są próby takie odkrywania większej liczby informacji na temat tego, co się dzieje, a u nas to po prostu krąży w zasadzie jako już pewniak, nie? Więc oni potrzebują tak jakby potwierdzenia innego, że faktycznie takie DLC się wydarzy, czy w ogóle jakiś projekt związany z Wiedźminem 3. Natomiast u nas my to do tego inaczej podchodzimy, a z racji bariery językowej jest to pewnie dla nich spory problem, żeby to rozkminić. Tak bym to postrzegał. Leaker, insider, streamer. Szpiegów na prasówkach mamy, wątpię.
With that being said, I would actually love to see Sidaris as a location. Even though we've never actually seen it, it still remains near and dear to me. It's a seaside city. I have some OCs that are from here, so I would love to see it featured in an expansion pack. It also makes some sense as a location for this expansion pack because it's right near Belleteyn, so it's not like the characters would have to really travel that far. It might not be a whole new area like Toussaint is, but maybe just expanding the map a little bit westwards. But the reason why I think that Dandelion will have a role to play in it is because Dandelion has connections to Sidaris and the surrounding areas, beginning with his cousin Ferrand de Lettenhove, who we met in Season of Storms, and who is the instigator of Karak, which is a city-town nearby Sidaris. We also meet Essidavin in Bremavord, who, even though she's not from Bremavord, Netflix, she's just staying there for a bit as she's a Trobyritz. But from what we can imagine about Essidavin, she doesn't know how to cook, which is very unusual for a woman in the Northern Kingdoms, and also she grew up by the sea. So this suggests to me that she actually grew up in Sidaris. Because if she's a Trobyritz and doesn't know how to freaking cook, then she's probably a noblewoman. And Dandelion, of course, is a nobleman, he's a Viscount, so it would make sense if these two became friends, because Dandelion actually says that he's known Essidavin since she was a child. And finally, Dandelion's third connection to Sidaris is Valdemark's, who is the troubadour of Sidaris. So although we don't know Dandelion's actual birthplace, it's never actually been confirmed, this would be a great opportunity to maybe place him somewhere and give him some more backstory. Also, because this expansion pack is literally called Songs of the Past, and Dandelion is our poet and troubadour, look at it's the purple from his hat is like the purple from the title. Also, of course, Dandelion was in the Belleteyn celebration artwork, so, I mean, Now, all of this is actually, to me, it sounds too good to be true, if I'm going to be honest, because I really like Dandelion, and when I heard people pointing out that, oh, he's in the Belleteyn artwork, OMG, the purple is like his purple, I was like, okay, hold up, though. Because this sounds like a theory that I would have come up with, 5 years ago when I was like, my god, the game does not treat Dandelion with the respect. We need a whole DLC just to expand on Dandelion's backstory, just to give Geralt and Dandelion some more friendship moments. Hell yeah, Jaskier, let's go, let's go, let's go. But with the actual evidence that we have, the fact that it's freaking called Songs of the Past, I don't know, I'm putting my tinfoil hat on for this one. I'm putting my bonnet on for this one. It could actually be Dandelion. I'm actually putting my hat on for this one, guys, okay? Come on, 2027 Dandelion, let's channel it. Actually, maybe not, because it fucks up my hair, but yay. So if it does end up featuring Dandelion, I'm gonna be like, let's freaking go. Hopefully, Geralt and Dandelion can have some friendship moments together. If not, you know, I don't know, yeah. But all this talk of Sidaris leads me to my first theory, which is Druids. Because when Sidaris was brought up, it actually reminded me of this passage from Baptism of Fire when Dandelion is telling Geralt and Gahir about a delegation of Druids that he saw at King Ethane's court. Deciphering might take inspiration from this passage and recreate it with a delegation of Druids going to Sidaris again. But the thing to keep in mind here is that it's a delegation of Druids. They don't actually come from Sidaris itself, they come from some other place. Now, where might this other place be? Any guesses? Of course, there's several circles of Druids around the continent, but one of the most famous ones is in Kovir. That's right, the Circle of Druids in Kovir. The very same ones that had the unfortunate task of raising baby Vilgefortz, who, if you don't know, he's the main antagonist of the Witcher saga. I guess I shouldn't say unfortunate, because he really only turned evil after he grew up, but whatever. If you could go back in time and kill Vilgefortz as a baby. My god, maybe The Witcher 4 is Ciri going back in time and killing Vilgefortz as a baby. Okay, anyways. But I also wanted to bring up the Druids because of Chapter 7 of Tower of the Swallow, where Geralt and his company encounter giant tree creatures that the Druids have enchanted to do their bidding. These are some Gwent depictions of the tree creatures, And they kind of look like the thing from the promo art. I mean, I don't know, do you guys see it? I see it. Now, how does this relate to Ciri in Witcher 4? Ciri was actually taken in by the Druids after the Nilfgaardian invasion of Sintra, but she was also kind of responsible for their demise because Rience, who was Vilgefortz's sort of minion sorcerer under his command, Rience went and interrogated everybody and kind of killed an entire circle of Druids. I hate that guy. If we don't want to think about it that hard, then we could also say that Druids take in people that need help, that are injured, and maybe Ciri gets injured and needs some help from some Druids. So this is my first theory. Druids either wanted to help or harm Ciri, so they create or uncover this ancient relic, the tree woman monster thing. The title, Songs of the Past, relates to ballads, ancient traditions, and things in the past that have been since forgotten. Then, with the involvement of this ancient magic, that could be where Ciri gets her mutations from, her trial of the grasses, because they forgot how to do it over at Kaer Morhen. But that's just theory 1, okay? Theory 2, that's right, dryads. Yeah, I'm being real creative with the tree theories here, okay? What do you want from me? It's a freaking tree woman, okay? What am I supposed to say? I mean, look at this fucking thing. This thing obviously doesn't come from, like, Novigrad. Come on. Okay, so in this theory, I think that we could actually be going to Brokilon, which is the place where Geralt and Ciri first met. Showing us Brokilon would really get us back into Geralt and Ciri's relationship. Of course, the base game of The Witcher 3 is already all about Geralt and Ciri's relationship and how it's changed in the past 10 plus years, but I just feel like there's a lot to still be figured out about the transition between Witcher 3 and Witcher 4. And I kind of want Queen Enya to appear again because honestly, Brokilon declining slowly and the legacy of Witchers declining slowly kind of were paralleled in the short story Sword of Destiny. Also, because she got Ciri to drink the waters of Brokilon, maybe that could happen again. Maybe we could get some cool visions. Maybe Ciri senses that Brokilon is in danger and goes to help them. Maybe Yorvest shows up. That would be cool, right? I mean, Brokilon and the Scoia'tael were working together, so like, maybe, I don't know. But I think that in this theory, it actually makes sense for Ciri to receive the Trial of the Grasses because, I mean, Cedeproject's lore differs from Andrzej Sapkowski's lore. Also, in this case, I think the title Songs of the Past could really be tied into Geralt's personal memories rather than, like, ancient magic stuff. It would be really great if Songs of the Past was just like a compilation episode, like, you know, in like sitcoms where they do those episodes that are just characters going around a table and being like, remember when we did that thing? And then they just like show you clips from all the past episodes. But in this case, they would show you like animated versions of the short stories. Like, okay, that would actually be really fire though. That's my theories for this. Totally unsubstantiated, by the way, just things that have been on my mind since the announcement dropped. Thank you for listening to all of my rambling bullshit. My sources are in the description, but now I want to hear from you. So share your opinions, your feelings, your thoughts in the comments. I want to be reading them. I want to hear them. And also, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you if you've made it this far in the video, and also, I've been thinking of perhaps starting a separate channel to put gameplay on, because I do want to play Songs of the Past when it comes out, and possibly also replay Witcher 3, but I don't think that that content really is similar to what I post on this channel because this channel is more like video essays and commentary. So also let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in watching me play some games. But that's all from me for today, so thank you all for watching and I'll see you next time on Anis Vitra.